President Biden and Vice President Harris are headed to Atlanta today to focus on voting rights, and they're working to pass federal voting rights legislation by Martin Luther King Jr. Day. That is less than a week from right now. Ed O'Keefe is in Atlanta for us ahead of the speeches. Ed, good morning. It's not going to be easy to pass this legislation, is it?
No, it isn't, Tony. Good morning. The president and vice president will start their day in Atlanta here at Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once served as co-pastor. From here, they'll head across town to rally Democrats for new voting rights legislation. But here in Georgia, critics say that on this issue, the president isn't moving fast enough.
We haven't seen the type of leadership that we need to see from President Biden.
Cliff Albright is co-founder of the Black Voters Matter Fund, part of a coalition of Georgia groups that say President Biden shouldn't come to Atlanta without concrete plans to pass voting rights legislation.
What we really want to see, given that he came down here, is that he's got an ironclad deal in place. Anything short of that is really going to be disappointing.
The Biden administration is pushing to pass two new voting rights bills, and the White House says the president today will call upcoming votes on them a turning point in the nation. In his speech, Mr. Biden will vow to defend your right to vote and our democracy, and will put pressure on the Senate to act. The first bill would establish national election standards by requiring all 50 states to offer at least 2 weeks of early voting, no excuse vote-by-mail options for every voter, a national voter ID standard, and same-day voting registration. Republicans generally oppose the bill.
They also want same-day registration, and that's just very difficult for any election official to manage. And I think that undermines trust in elections.
The second bill would update the 1965 Voting Rights Act and force states with a history of discrimination to clear any potential changes to election laws with the Justice Department. Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says the bill overreaches.
This is a bill to turn the partisan attorney general into a national elections czar.
So with no Republican support, the voting rights legislation can't survive a filibuster vote. That means any debate over voting rights is first going to be about potentially changing Senate rules. The White House says the president today will reiterate support for changing the rules by allowing bills to pass with a simple majority.
I support making an exception on voting rights for the filibuster.
But Albright says the president needs to fight harder.
He's got to give complete, unequivocal support, not support, demand and call for filibuster reform.
Well, sounds like that's what's going to be said by the president today. We'll see. And then there's the issue of getting all Democrats on board. Adding pressure to the president, some members of Dr. King's family have said the nation should not celebrate MLK Day next Monday unless Congress passes that voting rights legislation. Gayle?
Wow, throwing down the gauntlet. A lot of frustration in Georgia. Thank you very much, Ed.